way, preparing for your interviews or plans or anything like that, don't hesitate to contact me. I think it's fantastic, and I wish you guys the best. All right, are we ready? So, you want to go?
Sure.
Okay. Let me know if you need any help or if there's anything.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
I'll fix it. I'll shift it. Right. Very cool. Okay, cool. So, beautiful. Right, let's get to it. So, yeah. We can, yeah, I mean, I'll like adjust, I'll like get back and turn it on, yeah. I'm gonna talk for a little bit. My name's Perrin Kush, and I'm a first-year computer science student. So, one of the reasons why I'd say, and I want to start with this, why I love computer science, is because oftentimes it's used as a sort of like paintbrush for like the 21st century artists. In that, a lot of my friends who are in comp sci, like they have other interests. And so one of my best friends, she loves music. And I was like, oh, Spud is making music. And so she's creating an app that is like a better music creator, right? And there's countless other examples of this. And so when I was tasked with this project of making an app, I thought, well, one of the things I wanted to do was really abide by that philosophy of computer science as a tool to make other things better. In fact, one of my idols, Steve Jobs, he even said it himself when he was helping create the Macintosh in 1984. He said that the people working on the Macintosh, which really was one of the first ever times where you had a graphical user interface, the people working on it were poets and artists, and they wanted to see it come true because they saw it as a tool to help kind of advance their own arts. And so the question for me was, well, what am I interested in that I think software could really help? And so an interesting problem I came up with was actually politics. Because whereas technology is usually kind of bringing people closer together despite distances, right? With Facebook, you can see your friends instantly, messages, things like that. It tends to be the opposite with politics. I mean, you don't really know your representative, right? I mean, it's weird. I mean, how many of you even know his name? That's kind of unbelievable because they're elected by you. And it's a weird system when you have a democracy, but the people in that democracy aren't really aware of who they're electing or what they really are. And so I thought of kind of building a tool that could maybe bridge that gap. So it's called Humbly Congress, and so this is what it looks like. So let me go on the home screen here. You see the Congress app over there? That's it over there. Okay, and so now we can zoom in. And so what it really does is try to make you more aware of who you're electing. Okay, so let's open it up. So instantly it loads, and it's getting all this data, depending on how fast the Wi-Fi is, and it shows every single representative right now, okay? Every single one in Congress, and you can kind of scroll through them all. And the way it's doing it is actually very clever, because oftentimes loading 435 images could be very slow, but it's actually just caching it as it goes up and down. And while you're here, the ones on the bottom of this, it's a giant table, and the ones on the top are actually like turned off, like it's not loading them anymore. And so that's what makes it really speedy. But the red and blue represent the party, and so you can actually tap on any single one and get some cool details here. So, for example, their next election, the state they represent, some really basic information about their voting record, like how loyal they are to their party, how absent they were. And there's a really cool call button over here where you can actually just call, and instantly you can call them, just like that, on their DC office. Okay, and so another very cool thing is the bills. So you can actually view the bills they sponsored, if they've sponsored any. And so here's all the ones that this one has, and I can view them all, see when they were introduced. Another really interesting thing is you can actually see the details. So if I like, this one, the Physician Assistant Higher Education Modernization Act, I can just click on View Bill Details, and it goes to that specific ID's website where I can see the details. I can progress of it, you know, what's going on with it. And again, you can keep updated by just calling and making sure that, you know, that bill, maybe it's something you really are passionate about, gets through. So how am I getting all this data, first of all? Well, I'm using an API from ProRepublica. And so they have all of this data that I can just kind of read through using JSON reading. And it's just kind of, it's basically a whole bunch of websites with like very different links. And so you kind of just get the ID of the politician, and then you go, and that kind of is part of the URL. And then you go to that URL, and you grab the data that you want, and then you display it onto your app. And so in addition to the House, you can even see the Senate. And so you can see all the 100 senators, and again, you can see their details, call office, you can view their bills as well. And so this is all, you know, fine and dandy, but it's not really that useful because you don't really want to go through every single one, and most of them you don't really know, and you don't need to know because you're not electing them. The reason why I brought up all of them is because sometimes there's something big happening in Congress, and you want to be able to call a certain number of people kind of quickly. So for example, just last week, the Affordable Health Care Act was a big thing, and there were about, I think, you know, it was a close call. I think it got passed by one vote. And so there was this big thing on Twitter where there were 7 politicians who were like a maybe on it. And so, you know, you had to call them constantly, kind of like spam their inbox to make sure that they kind of lean no. And calling is very effective, by the way. There's a New York Times article that said the most effective way, they did this really big study, and the most effective way to influence a politician's decision is through calling them, not through emailing. They can ignore email. It's really effective for when big legislation comes through, and you can kind of just go through, find the politician, and quickly call them. But we wanted something that's also really good for daily use. So you see this tab over here on the bottom called Nearby Politicians. You can actually just tap that, and it gets your location, and then finds all the ones in this district right now. So for Sarasota, the representative is Vern Buchanan, and then of course we have our 2 senators, Nelson and Rubio. So if I move to St. Petersburg, or if I went to Miami, the representative would change. Like for me, I live in Broward, so my representative is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And so again, it just changes automatically. If I move to a different state, the senators even change. And I can get, again, the same ability. If I tap on the cell, I can actually, you know, see the same thing as I did with the previous one, but over here, I have something really cool. I can call instantly over here too, so it's a little faster. But I can also fax. And so what faxing does is it actually, when you click it, it opens up a text message app, and then you can just text the fax, and then it goes to their printer and prints it. So let me give you an example. Let's fax Mark over there right now. So the way you do it is you just text resist to activate the chat box. So I'm going to do resist. And so it should activate, and I should be getting a text. And now I'm on T-Mobile, and so T-Mobile has 1-2 bars if I'm lucky. So this you know, may take a while for the text to get through. But let's see if I got the message. I'm on Do Not Disturb, so let's wait. But usually what should be happening is I'll get a text that says "Welcome to chat box" or "Resist bot," and then it'll say send us your zip code, and you give it the zip code, it'll get your senators, and then you say the message, and then that's it. It just prints it to their DC office. So it was working earlier this morning when I did it, but a lot of it depends on signal. But while we wait on that,
Now, does the senator that you're sending this to, or the representative, see it, or does everybody see it?
the senator that I'm sending it to.
Okay.
So it goes to that specific senator's fax machine. And so, you know what, I think I figured out the problem. Yesterday,
You said fax machine?
it faxes it to the printer.
Okay.
Yeah, because the ProRepublica API also includes faxing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can just get that and then I can just send it through. So, you know what, I think I know why it's not working. I think it's because, you know, this morning when I was testing it, I unsubscribed because I wanted to resubscribe and so you have a subscription work. But I think when I unsubscribed, there may be a problem with their resubscribing. So I'll look into that. But it's really cool when it works. And
Let's call
a resist bot.
him. No, let's call him. You had a phone.
Oh, sure, yeah, let's call him right now, yeah. We can call him.
This is Senator Rubio's office.
Absolutely.
Right now. Thank you for calling Senator Rubio's Washington, D.C. office.
It always goes to voicemail.
Oh.
An issue. Please press 1. To hear our office hours or location, please press 2. If you are interested in setting
So Vern Buchanan almost actually always picks up though, which is interesting. And so that's
He himself picks up?
or his office. And so another cool thing though with the faxing though is that you may think that it's not really like necessary that they'll just see the fax and throw it right away, but by public federal law they actually have to, when they get that fax, they have to file it, and like it's in a historic database so that they can tell the senator, well look, we got this many faxes about this issue, this many about that issue. So faxing also really works because they can have that archive or that proof of, wow, people really care about this issue, maybe we shouldn't be so crude. And so that is the gist of the app.
Good.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Wow, that is really, really cool. Any questions?
Is there like a search bar so that you don't have to scroll if you're looking for a particular?
That's a great idea. No, there's not yet. I will do one though. This has been something that like I've been working on for a few weeks now, and so things like sorting the list as well. Right now it's alphabetical. I would like to sort it by state. You know, searching would be pretty nice too. Yeah, those are all things I'm going to keep adding on to.
So I see like a lot of commercial potential here.
Yeah.
This
This is
is
a real
awesome. This is awesome. I love this. What do you like most about it? What do you all like most about this? I see it immediately.
Yeah, I think this has a huge application. Everybody is actually looking for something like this for awareness of their local
That's it.
election.
That's exactly it. This is knowledge. This is the very thing that I think is driving me crazy, is that no one knows what the hell they're talking about. You're hearing all this rhetoric on television. I don't even watch the news anymore. This is such a powerful tool to get engaged. It's how the democracy works, whether we like it or not. This is how it is, and you're basically giving access to everyone this information. This is probably the information that's frustrating many people, is how do I get in front of my representative? There it is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I've ever called in my life a senator or representative, but I would be calling them every day if I had something like this.
Right.
We just did. It's the first time I've ever called Senator Rubio's office. Okay?
And you could get notifications too. So every week it'll say, if you haven't called for a week, it'll notify you. So you sure you don't want to call anyone? And
Wow.
so actually, like every week, I always call Rubio.
This is amazing. I mean, I look at this and I'm thinking, is anyone else doing this anywhere in the world? Are there other countries doing this?
I was very when I like thought of this, I thought, well, someone had to do it by now. Like there'd have to be 1,000. Very little that was out there, almost nothing. And there was maybe one decent app, but it was $5, and it was from the 114th Congress. It was 2 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
It's so surprising that there's not a lot.
How much effort is it to keep this current? To keep the database?
This updates automatically.
This is automatic.
It's
I
an
noticed
API
that.
that I'm using.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't need to do it. Originally, I was actually putting all the data in.
Yeah.
But then I had no idea that there were these things called APIs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, one of my professors told me that you should see these things, and so that saved me quite a bit of time. I was creating the images individually. Like I was going through every single politician, finding their image, cropping it to a square, saving it.
And it's all available.
Well, no, now I deleted that because I can use an API.
Oh, I see. You know, this is so similar to what we did when I developed my timeline. It's the same. You went through the same exercise, same process, except you found a database of the API and access to this information. And now, I think I agree with what Carlos said. I see a huge potential of something like this. This should be in every classroom. This should be something available to every student in every classroom from K through 12. Can you imagine, by the time you get into college, this is second nature to you?
Right.
Talk about being able to influence the political system, which is what we're all here to do, you know, for whatever we believe in, whatever our ideology and beliefs are. There it is. There's the people that you want to, the first tier people you want to get access to.
Right.
Wow, this is awesome. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is really cool. As you update it in the future, it would be nice to mention how influential faxing them actually are, calling them. Like you said that they did a study, because I didn't know. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get on voicemail, and no one's ever gonna respond to me, or why would they ever look at a fax? No one looks at faxes anymore. So that would be cool, an info thing.
Okay.
Maybe a guide while you're doing, when you
Because
first
I do
open up
that.
the app, be like, oh, fun tip.
I would be
Okay, got it.
just text these people all the time.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Just curious, have you ever actually had one of the representatives pick up the phone themselves?
The representative themselves now. I've had only for Vern. I mean, Nelson, sometimes I've had a first person pick up. Rubio is a little more popular, so it's a bit harder to reach him. And whenever there's something hot going on in politics, forget about it. You're always going to go to voicemail. You know, AUCA, you know, the whole refugee ban, when those things came up, when those were hot political topics, all of them voicemail instantly because a lot of people end up calling.
Interesting.
So what's the name of the app? Sorry, we did it.
It's called Humbly Congress. I submitted it to the App Store last week. It's still in review. So we don't know, it's not yet approved. It probably will get approved, but we'll see. Whenever it gets approved, I mean, by next week it should be approved. It's usually 2 to 3 weeks. So.
How big is the entire list of, when you make that API call to get all the senators?
ProRepublica.
Do you know how big the entirety of the data is?
They have, like, what they hold?
No, like the size.
Oh, no, I don't.
I'm just curious because, like, if you could, well, you know how like when you're opening it and loading it, it's like a couple seconds, which you know can be like kind of annoying. I was thinking you could cache at least the local. If you cache the local senators and default to that page, and then once you open the app, start loading the rest of it immediately, continuously, then no one would have to worry about. By the time you clicked over to the list of everyone, then you already have the data.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, caching is something that I've been told about too. It's a little bit tricky, but yeah, I'm learning it. Eventually, yeah, I want it to be able to, like, you open it up and it's just there because it stores it from the last time you opened it.
Another thing that I've heard people doing is they take an image of the last time it was loaded, like a screen grab basically, so it looks like it's loaded even though it's not. But,
yeah,
whatever works.
So in terms of like data streaming and all that stuff, like does it require Wi-Fi or like 4G?
Yeah, it requires an internet connection.
So, just another project for you is to do for Florida for your district representative.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Do a subset.
I really wanted to do that too, actually. Like make it so you can see your local national representatives and your state representatives. There's an API that does that called state something, state capital, but it's not perfect.
Well, it's not this either, I'm
Yeah.
sure. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the problems is that everything is so decentralized,
Yeah.
and so it's very hard for someone to like have a central database of every single local representative, like every single state senator, state representative. But whenever that does come out, that'd be great.
Sure.
Just regarding storage, how much does this application take up in space?
Like almost a megabyte.
I see.
Because it's not storing anything right now. It's not
Right.
caching anything. It's just streaming it through Wi-Fi.
Well, that's a
Exactly
lot,
what I
yeah.
did with mine, same exact thing.
Yeah,
It's very low, very small program.
which is great because like initially when I was storing the images like physically, I had to like save it onto the drive, and 535 HD images kind of adds up to
Yeah.
storage a little bit. So yeah.
So I think this is a good opportunity for when there's elections going on to broadcast to the public who's running and what they stand for and everything, like building candidate profiles for people that
Yeah.
aren't currently in Congress, because I think that's the next step is like once people are informed of what's going on in Congress, their vote matters. And for example, today is the elections for Sarasota City Commissioner. A lot of people aren't voting. People don't really know what's going on in their local elections or their national elections a lot of the time. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the next step is to like for where I want to see the stuff go forward. It's definitely go more and more local. Have it so you can see what's going on locally in your own state, and also whenever elections come out, see the candidates, and you can see like what's going on with them as well. And the difficult part is making it as fair as possible, because you know a lot of people can dismiss it pretty quickly by saying, oh, it's a little biased. So, but.
This is, my brain's exploding right now. Let me say a couple of quick things. I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm gonna add some serious fuel to the fire right now. So I didn't plan on doing this, so bear with me. I'll be as quick as I can. This is awesome. But let me ask you something. Well, let me just get to the punchline. So you're competing based on what we want to do with this. What do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with this? What does this really allow you to do? And whatever the answer to that is, who's doing stuff like this now using other methods and modalities and platforms? I'll give you a horrible example. Donald Trump tweeting, okay? Or anybody tweeting. Well, that brings in Twitter. Wait, what's this got to do with Twitter? whatever the answer to that question is should be compelling. It's either got nothing to do with Twitter, or it's got everything to do with Twitter. I look upon Twitter as an interactive platform that allows us each to give our ideas and comments, exactly. I don't know what your goal for this is, but it's got to be something that empowers us as constituents in any process. Yeah. And so the word I use here is scaled indefinitely. You can scale this indefinitely, vertically and horizontally, anywhere you want to go. You've already got my attention. I love it because it's like being able to have a backdoor access or a front door access or a special key into someone's office. All right, well, I'm there. What do I do? I mean, what do I do? What do you do? What do you do when you get to their attention? So I'm thinking to be able to integrate it now and perhaps use it or launch it off of other platforms or compete with those platforms. Did you do this yourself? Did you create this entirely yourself?
Yeah.
This app yourself?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So so this is, and I hope you're not finished with this thing. I mean, I hope you see long term.
Like a summer project.
Now here's the other part of it. This gets even better now. I mean, there's elections going on in France right now. In fact, I think they're today.
They finished.
Did they finish?
Macron.
Oh, who won?
Macron.
Okay. Well, there you go. The point is, you've got this going on. The model that you've created is applicable to virtually any.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be a democratic process. It can be a process because the information you have here, this is what I call the most crucial information. You know, I asked my wife the other day, can you give me a copy of the Constitution? She's just like, why? Well, I haven't seen it in so long. You know, I don't even know what the Bill of Rights is. I don't even know what the 10 articles are. I want to see just refresh my memory. What you're doing is you're keeping us informed. This is a way to do that. So I'm a big proponent of that. And especially, I don't know that you could have done this at a better time.
Yeah.
At a more appropriate time.
I got the idea because of...
I love it. I love it. Good job. Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me find my list. And the next person we're going to invite up here is Mr. Gonzalez. Tell me what lighting you need, if anything. You need the lighting, the computer?
No.
Okay. Oh, quick comment to those viewers on Facebook. We see you. We see your comments. We're just not able to get to all of them. I apologize. We weren't prepared to respond to your comments. If you send me your questions, I will make every attempt to answer every single one of them. I just can't do it right now because of all that's going on.
Can we also plug individual emails if they want to contact the person or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I hope you're not tired of listening to politics, because this is going to be another one of those. So, for my project, I'm trying to apply a new technical aspect to a very commonly used and talked about political tool, which is the political spectrum. Now, mapping like political positions is by no means something new. Hell, our very concept of left and right comes from seating in the French Parliament. And it's been expanded to so many ways. It's been expanded in the sense that our very definitions of left and right have changed, shifted. It can be measured economically, it can be measured, it can measure revolutionaries versus reactionaries, and it could also measure social hierarchies. I've seen various interpretations of the left-right spectrum. It's also expanded to foreign countries. It's not just applied to France. It's applied globally. And not only this, some spectrums have even expanded beyond the left-right binary. And one particularly interesting shift, or phenomenon, which might be the more appropriate way to call it, is the development of a two-dimensional political scale. These include the Nolden chart, Specker, and also probably one of the more famous ones, the political compass. looks like this. This is a project that I've worked on quite a while ago. It measures both left and right, and it has a social skill pitting authoritarianism versus libertarianism. The positions are taken from the site itself. I just placed them. And yeah, that's just a general overview of what it looks like. So I became particularly interested in these kinds of spectrums, and I couldn't pin down exactly why. I thought it might have been because a lot of these websites that feature these have tests, so I can place myself on them, compare my political rivals or enemies with people that I identify with or support. I thought it might have been because of how aesthetically pleasing it looked. It looked a lot more interesting. But that didn't seem to resonate. And I eventually feel like I pinned it down at one point. And that is, I feel that these kind of spectrums are much more inclusive than ones that I'm used to. Now, there's two aspects of being inclusive. First and foremost, they can account for almost any position on the political spectrum. So it's not just limited to, say, liberals and conservatives. Even positions that have been difficult to map before can be placed with some degree of accuracy on some of these two-dimensional spectrums. Also, inclusivity has the aspect that they're not particularly judgmental toward a particular political position. I'm sure you've seen plenty of spectrums that write off an ideology or a position or a measurement. I mean, some are so outright. It's labeling one side of it tyranny, slavery, despotism, or corruption, while the other side is just liberty, just like the objective right, essentially, the objective right position to be. So I feel these spectrums act less so as a tool for analyzing and comparing, and more so as a map for a particular view. And that's not what I'm trying to do. While these spectrums are less susceptible to bias, they're not completely immune from it. For example, I mentioned Specker, which is provided online. I believe it's still in its beta testing. And it is also 2D, has a social and economic scale. I believe its measurements are of political and economic freedom. Now, these definitions are they're a bit vague, and when I actually saw the mapping of them, the measurements that measure so-called maximum political and economic freedom show an ideology known as anarcho-capitalism. Now, I immediately thought, is this person's ideology? And sure enough, when I looked into his Reddit, it is. And I guess, I know it's a bit of a strange objective to have, but I really don't want you to know what my political position is because of this spectrum. Now, I've been talking about biases and all that, but there's another aspect that I feel that they're missing. It kind of ties into bias, but not completely. And that is these spectrums, these two-dimensional spectrums, don't have a technical aspect which can place it on a certain position or link it to measurable data. So a lot of these spectrums just place it with no explanation whatsoever. The political compass oftentimes publishes analysis which can explain why they put it in the ballpark area. Now, this is more accurate, but it's not precise. It doesn't explain an exact positioning, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to engineer a way to position precisely and explain that, so you can see exactly why I place whatever political, I mean, you could place ideologies, you could place parties, you could place individual politicians or political theorists. For this particular project, I decided to go with countries, and I'm going to explain how this spectrum in particular works, the design of it. So this spectrum maintains a left-right axis. Just to make sure from your perspective, yeah, sure, because my left versus your left, red, blue, right, with the more saturated colors suggesting a more radical economic position, while positions more in the center, less saturated in those. That's what I was trying to give with the visuals. And also there's a brightness component. So more authoritarian positions are brighter visibly, while more anti-authoritarian positions are darker. So so I gave definitions to work with what I'm trying to represent, and I'll just read those to you specifically. A left-wing position is supposed to describe an economy that's more cooperative and socially controlled, while a more right-wing position describes an economy that's privately controlled and more competitive. A higher authoritarian position appeals more to authority and tradition, while a more anti-authoritarian position rejects authority and tradition. Now I'm going to describe what I'm trying to do versus what I'm not trying. I'm not trying to put, as I've said, a right position. I'm not trying to point away from the politically corrupt or ignorant or naive. I want the task of political discussion and debate to be to those that are involved, not to the spectrum. It's supposed to make an extremely complex political landscape easier to get your head around. And also, if you are into the field, you can organize your thoughts in a clear way. And I can tell that that really helps from personal experience. So, I'm going to try to show how it works. As I said, there's both a formula for each one and an economic definition. I have the data, and I'm just going to show how I would place certain countries, for example. So the formula specifically, the economic formula, just to read it to you, it is the percentage of employees in the private sector subtracted by the percentage of employees involved in workers' cooperatives, again subtracted by the percentage involved in the public sector. So this just like political compass, distinguish between two forms of left-leaning economics. One's controlled by the state sector, and one's controlled by cooperatives. And then I multiply this by 0.01. An absolute scale here is, on the authoritarian is 1, the absolute on the anti-authoritarian scale is -1, moderate score is 0 on both, and then right is 1 and -1 on the left. So, France's economy is roughly 80% of the employees are in the private sector. Now here I have to admit a bit of a shortage in data, I guess. It's the amount of cooperatives are not. It's difficult to get data on the amount of cooperatives.
How do you define a cooperative?
It's a I guess for lack of a better, it's an economic body, I guess, for lack of a better term, that is controlled by the workers that work in that.
Okay, all right, so it's the same definition as we would use here, I guess.
Yeah. So So what I'm saying is it's difficult to, because there's not really data for each country. So I had to go within like what's specific within regions. However, for most of these countries, since the amount of cooperatives is usually, I wouldn't say negligible, but minimal, it's not going to affect it that seriously. And finally, about 20% of the economy in France is the public sector. You multiply that by 0.01, and that gives a position of 0.59, basically about 0.6 on the economic scale, and roughly, all right, and on the social scale, what we do is I have taken I believe it's the democracy index, just making sure. Yes, the democracy index by country, which ranks things such as political participation, political culture, the function of government, and gives a number with higher numbers meaning more full democratic systems, and like medium numbers being hybrid regimes and lower numbers being more authoritarian regimes. So I take that and I impute that in the social formula. France, by the way, I believe is categorized by the democracy index as a flawed democracy. And that also is taken throughout, like how it officially calls them. So it came out with a measure of 0.59 on the economic and pretty much 0.01 on the social. So it's pretty much exactly near the middle. So I can just demonstrate how. And hopefully if I got, nope. So I can demonstrate how it positioned the country. To move on to another example, I can try Cuba. Cuba's economy is much more dominated by the, just take this off now, reset it. Cuba's economy is much more dominated by the public sector, with, I believe, 72% roughly of employees employed in the public sector, with the, I guess you would call it just non-state sector. How they labeled it was non-state sector at 27.3%. And that came out with a minus 0.53 on the economic scale. Now, on the social scale, their measurements were quite different from France. While France was called a flawed democracy, Cuba is considered an authoritarian regime, so this will push it higher on the scale. First off, because in the formula, a higher score on the democracy index will take down your authoritarian scale, while a categorization of authoritarian will also bring it up. So that's why Cuba is being raised. The specific score was minus 0.536 on the economic and 0.75 on the social. So roughly, if that's too much, that's all right. Just going to reinforce it. So, I wanted to leave one open so that I didn't actually sort out. So I wanted to take, if I were to map the entire world on this, the world average. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually show, I'm just going to run through how I do it. So I have an average for, we'll start with the economy. I have an average, for the whole world, I have an average public sector percentage at 21.3%. The number employed by the private sector is at 78.7%.
Are those an aggregate of political models, or are they?
This is just the world, oh, sorry. This is just the overall size of the public sector, just total.
Okay, regardless of the political system.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
in place.
this is just every country, everything
Okay.
considered. All right, and that's 019 cooperatives. So the economic formula, once again, is percentage of employees in the private sector, so that is 78.7%, subtracted by the percentage in cooperatives, which is 0.19%, and finally subtracted by the percentage in the public sector, which is 21.3%, and then that's multiplied by 0.01 to fit the 10 measurement. So if I can.
What percentage of countries are included in your analysis?
I showed. I could map as many as that I have sufficient data for.
Because some are going to be skewed grotesquely. I know, for example, in South America, which is it?
Like which country in particular? Like
I just saw something on the news today. Their entire economic system is.
Oh, Venezuela?
It's in Venezuela, I want to say.
Yeah, Venezuela is a bit more of a complicated one because it goes through periods
So what do you
of
do? Do you
nationalization.
ignore that data, or
That's a difficult case because it goes through periods of privatization and nationalization pretty consistently.
Okay.
So it can just change quite rapidly.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a case of like China as well. I actually remember seeing there was a time where pretty much everyone was employed in the public sector in China, but that slowly shifted over time, especially with the reforms in the 80s.
Right. Right.
What I like here is I don't know exactly what it's going to, I have an idea of what it's going to be roughly, but I haven't solved any of this at all. So the world had an economic value of 0.572. I'm going to move on to the social aspect, or the social index. The average score on the democracy index, including all countries, was 5.52, which would classify the typical government in the world as a hybrid regime.
As a what?
As a hybrid regime. There's four categories on the democracy index. There's full democracy, flawed democracy, hybrid regime, and authoritarian.
Okay.
It says the average would fall under a hybrid regime.
Got it.
So, something that I forgot to mention, I add a certain percentage, I believe 0.6, to recognized states. So that way you could also include like more radical societies, if you would call them, or communes or whatever you would call them, that function as direct democracies, for example, like near the bottom. As I've said, inclusivity is very high priority here. And again, I'm adding the specific numbers that are added. I add 0.2 on the authoritarian scale for flawed democracies, 0.3 for hybrid regimes, and 0.5 for authoritarian regimes. So. So we got an approximate, for the average of the whole world, we get an approximate value of, I believe, 0.572 on the economic scale and 0.35 on the social scale. So that would take it roughly here. So, are there any questions about like how I apply things, what sources, or anything like that?
Anybody have a question? I have some.
I think. Oh, actually, I should add, just because I said where I got what I was saying for the social skill. I said I got that from the Democracy Index. For the economic one, most of my numbers are from I believe the ILO, the World Bank, and also the OECD.
So this is interesting, very interesting what you've done here. I love the data. I love how you're collecting the data and you're analyzing the data and you're visualizing the data. So the first question I have to ask you is, you're generating trends from this data. You have trends. It's trend data, and it's what would be very potentially lucrative is if you were able to use this data, the trends and patterns, in a predictive algorithm. Have you considered that perhaps? You know what I'm talking about. In other words, if you could use it in a predictive way, you're getting data from all around the world. This is economic data. This is social data. It's political data. Any complex algorithm that would be used in any financial institution relies on the same kind of data. So I'm wondering if you've considered using it in that manner.
Well, what I have considered is I would need, like, if right now I've just measured countries. Like, usually people measure, the most popular things that get measured are ideologies and like individual political figures. To measure, I would have to create an entirely new formula. For those, I could keep the definitions that operate on the same, but I would need a new formula. I've actually like tried to think about what kind of formula I would use to like convey a political party or an ideology or a person. It's a bit more difficult. To be honest, this mostly started, I was in the middle of class and I had the idea of the economic measurement to try to measure it by the buildup of the economy. I feel like that's I guess, like a better term, underappreciated when trying to talk about how.
I mean, those are indicators. These are markers and indicators, and they're heavily used in financial analyses and predictive models and things like that. I'm wondering if you have something here you could use in a unique way to perhaps adapt to that type of model, and the changing mode, the changing nature of these variables. I think is this intrigues me. This fascinates me. You're looking at you're looking at, there's so many different variables that you can choose, and you've selected some very specific ones, which happen to be, I think, in my opinion, some key indicators and critical indicators. The thing, of course, I love to do, and as an engineer, I'm just inclined intrinsically to create a predictive. I'm interested in what it's been doing. I love what it's been doing. That's the history. But what I'm really interested in is what it's going to do. And any model, that's what simulations are for. We simulate things because we want to predict the behavior. Well, financial institutions, economic institutions, political institutions are no different. Just a different, perhaps in fact it's the same algorithm, just in a different application. So I'm thinking to myself, if you're already doing that, you've already got this information, you're going after the very same kind of information, you might want to look at it from a predictive, in some predictive sense. And you know what they say about predictions, right? You can make 100 predictions, all you have to do is get one right. And you've proven your case. Any other questions? Okay, awesome. Okay, alrighty. Let's see what we got here. Okay, next person, Carla. Okay, Carlos. Okay, that's right. Olivia?
Yeah, but you gotta do the thing.
What's that?
Yeah, the Facebook live stream has to be turned on because I'm doing the.
Okay, you want to do it? You want to do it now, or you want to wait?
If whatever.
We'll do
works
whatever
with
you
the-
want. Okay. We're going to tell you what. Let's do this. Let's hold yours
Last one.
for the last one, and that way we don't have to come back on. Okay. Were you going to do yours today? No, you weren't. Rain, how about you? Next week? Okay, Kingsley, you ready?
I am ready, but I have it's like multifaceted, and one thing I have is a cologne, and another thing is my music. I have that today.
Okay.
The cologne, it had to sit for 2 more days.
Okay, all right. Ozan, I saw Ozan here a moment ago. Oh, there you are.
I'm going to be presenting next week.
It's awesome. Perfect. That's perfect. That's awesome. So why don't we do this? We're gonna sign off on Facebook because we have Olivia doing hers. So we'll see you next week, same time, same channel, and send me your. If you need to email me, by the way, you can send it to sathan, SATHAN @ncf.edu. And I'll be happy to respond, and I will attempt to respond to all these things. So, we'll see you, and